Oh my gosh, hi. Girlie, your locks look so good. How long have you had them? Oh, thanks. About 5 years. Oh wow. And how often do you retwist? I mean, never. What? I mean, but they look like you. I mean, but how do you? So what do you? Yep, it's true. I never retwist my locks. I've had my locks for 5 years, and I don't retwist, and I never plan to retwist ever. And it works for me. And here's why it does. So today I'm going to be taking down my 2-strand twists. I did a video on how I did the style previously on my channel, and from that day to this day it's been exactly 1 week. So this is what they look like after 1 week. I mean, they look like I just put them in, right? In about 3 to 5 days I'll be washing my hair again. I usually wash my hair every week and a half in the winter time, and then usually in the summertime about every week. So while I'll take these down, I will talk about why I don't retwist and never plan to. So the first thing with me, I need a hair tie. So the first thing that happened in my lock journey when I was in month 5 is that I decided that I was going to semi-freeform my locks. Before then, I had retwisted my locks once a month, and I retwisted because I thought that that was the only way that my locks were gonna lock up. And at month 5 into my lock journey, my locks started budding, and I started to kind of realize about locks that maybe you don't need to retwist in order to lock up your hair. So I knew that I wanted to semi-freeform, number one, because I like things really simple. If I have to do extra work with my hair, it's not gonna work with me. I got locks so it could be simple. And when I started to retwist, I realized I was doing more work than what I wanted to. So I started researching and saw that a lot of people just semi-freeform their locks, and I realized I can do the same thing too. I wanted less maintenance in my routine, and I also didn't really like the whole scalpy look whenever I retwisted, and I realized that ever since I got locks, I became a lot more tender-headed. No one else touched my hair ever, as far as when I've had locks. No one else has ever touched my hair, so I was doing, the retwist. So then about 6 months into my lock journey, I stopped retwisting altogether. As when before I was retwisting my locks once a month. When I stopped retwisting, I realized that something was happening like around my edges. So I realized that of course there's going to be new growth, and sometimes that new growth starts to bush up near the root of your locks. And if you don't do something to maintain that new growth, it will start to marry at the roots, which means that this new growth can sometimes look like breakage, right? So if you look at the front of my hairline, push these back, around the temples, I have pretty thin edges. So up close and personal, you can see that I have really, really thick new growth everywhere, but on these temples, it's just, thick new growth at the root, and then you get here, and then it just gets kind of thin right in here. See? And some points, it can look like it's holding on by a thread. The locks on this side, or the lock on this side, it's not as thin as the one on the other side, but it's pretty much still the same concept, thin at the root, and then at the end it gets a lot thicker. So after I realized that, I started to do some sort of maintenance again. I realized that I needed some sort of maintenance to to organize my hair back into sections, to prevent my locks thinning at the root and to prevent breakage. And that was the only reason. And I came across a couple of videos. One YouTuber, Atreyu Locs, he had this technique where he braided his new growth into his locks. So once I saw that, I said, I can do that. And then I did. I started to do that method. And I usually would do it as needed. Like, I didn't have to do it to every single lock. As opposed to retwisting, you usually retwist to every single lock. I didn't have to do that because this marrying near the roots in this extreme amount of new growth, it didn't happen on every single lock. It just happened some points around my hair, around my head. So I would braid my new growth into my locks as needed. Here's a couple of clips of me doing that. Now, as I've started to do that, years went by, and now it's like now I'm 5 years into my lock journey. But maybe around the 4th year mark, I realized something about my locks. My hair naturally grows up and out like afro, and I'll insert some photos of how my hair is in its natural state as like a wash and go. However, this is the first time that my hair has ever been this long. I realize this, when my hair starts to get longer, in locks, it starts to train itself to do certain things. Like if I've been braiding my new growth into my locks for years, then my hair has been trained to go into certain sections. And at this point, I no longer have to maintain my locks in that same way with the braiding technique nearly as much as I had to do within the first couple of months of my lock journey, because now my locks are kind of trained to just go in their sections. And when I do have new growth, because as you can see throughout the years, my locks have grown significantly. My hair grows very fast when it's in locks. Despite my hair growing faster, I don't have as much new growth at the roots, which means I don't have to maintain it with the braiding technique or any technique for that matter nearly as much as I needed to before in the past. Even though my locks don't look like they're semi-freeform, they literally are semi-freeform. The rest of my hair pretty much grows into my locks now. It didn't used to in the beginning, but my new growth now grows into my locks naturally. And the result of that is what it looks like. When I wash my hair now, I have all this new growth, and the new growth just looks like my natural curl pattern. And then the lock starts somewhere around 1 to 2 inches after you see the new growth. So the new growth looks like just curly, wavy hair, my natural curl pattern, whatever it looks like, that's what it is. So then, answering this question of like, why don't I retwist my locks? Because I realized that, if I don't have to do this extra work for my hair, I'm not going to. And I realized early on into my lock journey that your hair does whatever you train it to do, basically. All of us, like whatever styles we do, we train our hair to be in a certain position. So just imagine getting locks. And this is the real reason why when you have locks, you don't need to retwist. First of all, you're training your hair to be in a certain section. You're training your hair to be parted. You're training your hair that you are going to maintain it at a certain frequency, at a certain rate. And when it doesn't get maintained at that certain rate, you might experience things like marrying, your locks trying to marry at the roots, which means when your roots get fuzzy and then your fuzzy hairs try to intermingle with each other, entangle with each other. However, once you stop trying to manipulate your hair so much, your hair starts to catch on. Like, oh, wait, I'm left to my own devices here. Okay, so now I can do what I want. And that's exactly what happens when you freeform your locks, because locks lock themselves. When you have loose natural hair, like you have loose hair, you usually would have, a detangling session on wash day, right? Because you don't want your hair to get tangled. But what happens if you didn't detangle your hair at all? Your hair would start to lock up. First it would just look like it's being matted, right? But honestly, if all you did was not detangle your hair and not brush and comb it or slick it back into styles, and you just let it grow, then it would start to lock up. As long as you wash it, it would start to lock up. And that would be called freeform locks. Retwisting my locks serves absolutely no purpose other than looking good. The more I didn't retwist, the more freedom I felt like my hair had. And also the more unique my locks looked. So yeah, we are done. Let me know if I forgot any. None of this is knocking retwisting. I think if you want to retwist your hair, then retwist it. If you like the look of the parts, then awesome, amazing. I like the way that it looks for other people too. Just for me, I knew it wasn't my jam. And I knew that I'm a straightforward and simple person. I don't need all these intricate styles. Every once in a while, I might style my hair, do something like this if I want a different look. But most of the time, I'm just not interested in it. And I like being a plain Jane. If you have retwisted in the past, like me, and you started semi-freeforming, what benefits have you seen, you know, from your lock journey from then on? And what have you learned about your own locks? Comment it down below. I would love to hear back from you. I love reading you all's comments so much. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. And these are my locks with my beads. Bloop. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.